Great. Thank you, Jon, for joining us.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So, CEO of Applied Monitoring. Could you tell us a bit more about the business?
Applied Monitoring is a startup business. When I say startup, it's probably 3 years old now. But it is involved in the development of a new technology, which enables non-invasive analysis and monitoring of biomarkers in the blood. So it utilizes microwave frequencies in order to identify the presence and the concentration of key biomarkers that are of interest to commercial partners.
Amazing. So removes need for injections and needles, that kind of thing.
It's more things like the focus area for us at the moment is lactate. So your levels of lactate in your blood are a key indicator of sporadic components. So for a sports wearable watch, the ability to be able to monitor that ongoing is a really valuable piece of data, and you can't do that at the moment. There's no technology in the market that allows you to do that. In healthcare, lactate is also a key indicator of potential onset of sepsis, which is the biggest killer in hospitals globally at the moment. So a heightened level of lactate, if you are not jumping around and exercising, is an indicator that there is something underlying and wrong with you. Whereas a heightened level of lactate, if you are running or cycling, that really shows your level of performance and how much further you can go before you would hit a rib wall and you can't go any further. So for serious sports people or people who in leisure time, marathons, triathlons, it's a really key indicator of performance. But the beauty of the technology is, in theory, we can look at other biomarkers. So we've looked at alcohol in the labs, dose of abuse, glycogen related to glucose and diabetes. So really quite cutting edge technology and a lot of market applications for the underlying technology.
So you said you're a 3-year-old startup.
Yeah.
Tell us a bit how the journey started. What brought you to this? Is your background in medical science or technology, or?
This total difference. So I spent 25 years in retail.
Right.
So started one career with Argos and was involved in e-commerce and digital retailing, and moved into payments and headed up their business division for a period of time. Obviously, they were acquired by Sainsbury's. I stayed on board and brought together their businesses and grew that business from sort of nearly a £500 million business. And then after 25 years in retail, was a lot of chopping and changing and structures, and managed to, I guess, manufacture an exit at a time that suited me. And at the same time, I'd fortuitously come into contact with my business partner, Rob. We were looking at a wearable baby monitor, which could be worn by an infant to measure their heart rate, their temperature, and key, their respiration. Quite difficult thing to do. But Rob mentioned that there was another technology that he'd been working on for a number of years, which is the microwave sensors. He was at a point where funding had run out and was he going to walk away from that? When I saw that technology, I said, you can't walk away. In a number of years, you'd see somebody else that had done it. You think we could have done that. So we formed a company, brought the team back together, moved the IT into that business. And it was my job to go and try and raise some funding for it, which we did. Wasn't an easy process and continues to not be an easy process. But so yeah, that's we moved away from the infant monitor, and we're looking at the development of those sensors to commercialise those, and we have some really good interest from some very, very, very large global businesses who want to understand if this works, and we've proved it does, and how can they use it and apply it in the consumer and medical devices.
You and I have spoken before, so I know that the fundraising journey is a challenge, but for our new listeners and audience, perhaps you can summarize without too much pain, how have you managed to raise money and what are the continuing challenges around that?
Yeah. So we've raised the majority of the funding has come from regional development funds. So through my previous life, I had a number of business relationships with suppliers, and one of those suppliers gave us a £85,000 halfway foot seed fund to try and get things moving. So that was fantastic. They were brilliant supporters, but they're not an investor. It was a punt. They saw the technology and they said they could understand what benefit that could bring to society if we got this technology to market. We then spoke to a number of VCs and private equity type investors, and they all, well, their view was, this is really interesting if you can make it work. If you can make it work. But you're too high risk for us. And then as we've gone along that journey, because we are pre-sales, so there's no revenues. It fails that at the moment, particularly in the UK, if you are not generating revenues, it's incredibly difficult to gain investment because it is high risk. You know, we're in a tech business and a tech world where things are high risk, they fail. But the ones that do succeed can be very, very rewarded. So we're stuck in that phase where, wow, can't believe you've got this. We know companies have spent millions and the market's spent billions on glucose monitors. We've had the Theranos issue where, raised a huge amount of money in the US or technology that was fraudulent, I guess. So we are in that really difficult place. Luckily for us, in the Northeast, two regional development firms, Mercia and Maven, both looked at what we had. We haven't proved we had it. And that they gave us a reasonable, seed fund to try and prove the technology's viability. And with a view that if we could prove it worked, then they would follow on and support us in terms of trying to commercialize it. So they did that. It wasn't a big enough fund to allow us all to lay our day jobs. So it's kind of the best endeavors, evenings, weekends, working on this. But we have succeeded in publishing papers, working with Durham University, where it works, which is great. But that initial investment took a year from the point of them saying, yes, we're going to invest to actually put the baby released. And the second round follow-on is taking a year from, yes, we're going to do this. The quantum of funding has gone from being quite large to quite low, and then maybe coming back somewhere in the middle, but it's taken another year. And where we are today, the funding should be with us in the next week or two. But we have been without funds for over 4.5 months, totally zero funds. So it takes a certain approach and mindset to keep going and to keep everybody positive about where we are, particularly when we have, neither £100 billion German business saying we want to work with you on this. About Europe's largest semiconductor producer wanting to work with us on this, and yet we can't get that funding released.
Do they not have pools of funds that they can give you?
There are some bits of funds where they can give us funding for specific work streams. What they can't do without acquiring the business, which they may wish to do at some point, that would be a great exit plan. But without acquiring us, they can't just put blanket funds in, pay salaries and support, but that's not what they do. If it's a specific piece of research, a study, a trial, that they can fund that as work packages, and they are going to do that. But the core kind of cash side, you know, the working capital, you ended it going, they can't really just sit it as, you know, like what we say. So where we are with those guys is work with us to design and miniaturize the device. When that is done, prove that miniaturization works to the levels our current research does, and we will support and take this to all our clients, which is great. That means we don't have to be from manufacturers, distributors, we don't have to market it, we're in partnership with someone. And at that point, I'm sure they will look and say, well, we don't want anybody else to have this. But it's that painful journey you get from where we are today to that point. And maybe it's a UK thing, but it's been incredibly difficult to get support and funding.
Yeah, I have heard that the UK is more risk averse when it comes to investment compared to somewhere
Yeah.
like US, who are more kind of government.
That's right. No.
In investment.
And we've been told many times, you know, in the US, you would get this investment, no problem. It was catch-22. You've got full-time jobs. You haven't got a presence of a footprint in the US. So you'd have to find somebody who could do that for you, and whatever cost that would be at to try and raise that funding. And we do have multi-billion-pound global businesses in the US that have approached us and said, have you read you got this technology? Yes, we can show them the published papers. And this is very interesting. We know we've got something, but I think what's as frustrating is the time it takes to raise funding and to get that commitment is we know that these companies, organizations want it. We haven't had the go to market. They've approached us. So we have something, and yet from an investment community, you can't kind of get that support. And it's not just the investment community, it's things like Innovate Pro and others we've applied 4 times and been rejected. We're not sure this technology has any applications, and you've got probably the biggest company in Germany. Yes. Which are one of the biggest wearable sports watch. And more in the world saying, yes, it does. And yet with that gap between being a startup and trying to work your way along the journey, and getting funding and commitment.
It must be so frustrating. I mean, when you wake up in the morning, do you think, here we go again? Or how do you drive yourself and your colleagues forward?
I wake up in the morning, I've got a day job.
Right.
It's totally different to this.
Yeah.
Sector. So that's got to be my goal. That keeps the lights on at all, or lightly. And I've got to deliver for that company. But obviously, the aim is long term to be leading this business in partnership with some great partner organisations. Then you wake up and you think, it's easy to walk away. It's easy to, the knocks and the time and the delays. We've had to manage the business so that we have no outgoings. Because to go for 4 or 5 months, 0 salaries for the people in the business who are relying on this salary, and 0 progress, 0 R&D while we're waiting for the funding. Essentially, you're not able to what for risk.
I'm just amazed that this technology hasn't got the funding and you haven't been able to move forward, because there's been such success in these categories that you're working at, and so much demand for data on health and sports performance.
Yeah.
And Yeah, it's just, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we firstly developed our strategy to say we'll not go healthcare first because the further hurdles would have to overcome around regulatory testing and accreditation. So it's go to the commercial and consumer market first, prove it, and then take the same technology to in conjunction with the partner for healthcare. But it is a huge market. Everybody, it's not only people who aren't well, it's the worried well, it's the health and fitness. It's true. Yeah, they want to know how their body's performing. We know that a totally non-invasive glucose sensor is the gold of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Billions of pounds worth of investment. Everything that's out there on the market at the moment is still invasive in some way.
Right.
Animal spikes, it's more amounts of blood taken. And our technology, there is zero penetration of the skin by any needles, zero blood taken.
So it would literally sit like a watch on your wrist or whatever.
Yeah.
Kind of elite athletes of this year.
Yeah, so I watch a lot of Tour de France.
Yeah.
And at the moment, lactate threshold is absolutely key because the way you perform better and longer is to know where your threshold is and have a training regime designed to understand where that is, not breach it, but generally push it further up and up and up.
Right.
Because once you hit that threshold, that's you done. So when we say cyclists go over home and they hit that brick wall, it's incredibly difficult for them to find that second push. And at the moment you would have to take either finger prick or the blood samples into a cartridge while you're on the move, quickly, cleanly, no contamination, and rely on those cartridges being accurate every time, and they're not. They give a really good reading, but they're not. So the ability to have a strap on your arm, your chest, or your wrist, which is able to communicate to you or to your team car, this is where we are, this is where your 11 is, hold back a bit, hold back until, right, you have to go now, and, we think this is what you've got left in your legs to keep going. It's the key information. So at the moment, you say, oh, well, my temperature's this, my heart rate's that, my respiration levels and the kind of thing. Well, this is where you might be, but everybody's different. Everybody's metabolism and physique is different. And you need to be able to look at the actual lactate levels in the blood to say, this is where you are. And our technology can do that.
Yeah. In terms of the fundraising, have you found that every potential funder you speak to has got a different approach to what they want from you? Some saying you need to do this when you present data and others that, or is there consistent messaging?
So there's been a lack of belief from the start.
Right.
You cannot have this type of technology. You just can't. Because it hasn't existed. Everybody wants it. And, for guys, then start, but we can't have this. And then, we produce the data. Well, we need more data. And that's fine. We didn't improve your key points on the journey. But it's mainly been either you haven't got this, you're too early stage. So the main challenge from investors has been you are too early stage, the journey ahead is too long for us. We want to pay it back more quickly, we want greater certainty. And mainly it's been that your pre-revenue.
Yeah.
So is it just one amount of funding followed by another? When will the revenues come? When do you guarantee that I'm getting my funding back plus the payback I want? And I can understand that to a certain extent. You've got lots of choices as an investor, lots of different businesses, but certainly in the UK, it seems to be did from the regional firms will invest in businesses that have already got revenues or already creating good margin profits. And our investment should just create more of that. So that's easy. Carry on. If you're in a niche area where this could be very big and very valuable, but there's a journey to go on, then I've got easier bets over here, and I'll go after them first.
Gosh. But can you not wave a piece of paper or email from your potential German and American interested parties and say, well, look at this, these are not nobody. They wouldn't be expressing an interest.
Yeah, we have done. Yeah. So
what's that set?
To investors, one of them is looking to follow on.
Yeah.
And the other one will not give us a raise, and we're just said, oh, it's not for us. Which is frustrating as well. Give us the raise, and it can be a no. Why?
Yeah.
And it's you've done. We've never seen a small regional company had the interest from companies this size. So wound up to that, you think is a big take. But it's not for us. And it's not for them, I think, because we aren't generating revenues now. And unless we are, and they can say, right, this amount of money would able this amount of growth, this amount of new jobs in the region, and this amount of payback to us.
It's a vicious cycle, though, because if you don't get the investment, you won't get the return. It just doesn't make sense, does it?
A technology company or anyone who's doing something that requires a lot of upfront R&D, they're not going to be revenue generating until they go to market.
No, it's really interesting. I mean, the research community, you when you publish a paper, you go for IEEE accreditation, and it's independently reviewed. So our most recent paper, which was trials done at Durham University Sports Department, and they played a great regional supporter for us. That was IEEE reviewed to the point where IEEE hold a global cancer conference every year. It was in Kobe, Japan 2 weeks ago, and they said, can we come and be the lead presenter? This is amazing. So we've done that. And yeah. I think, quite a lot of investors don't necessarily understand the technology. But in other investments, they do. It's not so much how you do it or what it is, it's just all there in black and white, more than numbers. You generate an income. We'll put this money to generate more income. That's basically it there.
In simple terms, have you not got a demo model that you can put on somebody's wrist and stick them on a watt bike or something and say,
videos of it's a bit bulky, and but with the German partner who we are collaborating now, they are Europe's biggest or second biggest semiconductor manufacturer. They've approached us proactively, and they've said, we want this. They've started the design, and we will be working with them to miniaturize it so that it's that big.
right,
Taken all. Either us, it could be taken by a watch manufacturer and the housing put around it, or it could just be as is placed on a strap on at a wall.
Obviously, the technology you developed is incredible, but the other part of this, which I'm amazed by, is that you achieved it on the side of full-time Europe.
Yeah.
How has that experience been, for the last 2 years, and how can you manage that one's own personal life or friends or family? Because that's part of it.
Yeah, it's difficult. So it's it's for the whole thing. It's not just me. And actually, luckily for me, in a way, we've been in the R&D phase. So I'm more the commercial side of the business. So yes, it's been difficult raising the funding, but the phase we've been in hasn't required so much of my time. It is design of the sensor, design of the electronics, undertaking studies on vegan people at Durham University, and that's being done by my colleague Rob and the two key scientific brains in the business, the professors out in Norway, Alex and Olga. They are the experts. So it's that team that's been doing a lot of that work. I'm from the board meetings, I produce the papers, I got a transfer to the investors. Now that will change, hopefully, when the investment lands, that it becomes more of a commercial development project. Will require more of my time. But really, for this business to succeed properly, one of the professors in Norway should be out of their job. They're working in the business full time. I should be in the business full time as well as Rob from a stage zero perspective. So it's incredibly difficult. It's that balance that I think most founders and startups have. It's the balance between what risks do I take in order to name this work? Do you jump ship completely and go totally in the role you want to be in, just try and make this business work? How much funding have you got? Can you still be in the mortgage? So where I've been at the moment is while it's an R&D project mainly, then my focus has got to be on providing the best I possibly can to the business that gets me day to day. Yeah. And they deserve all of my time and focus because they've invested in me, so that's fine. They're aware of me. Allow something on the side, I guess. So this shouldn't be on the side. It should be complete focus. But the side goes to line this, more than that, and that's what it's been. But it's got to be more than that. It's got to be complete focus.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of conflicting advice actually around whether founders should just go all in on their business and commit all of their time to, but people have bills to pay, or family is just important. It's not always.
And if it's a business stuff, I guess certain businesses can generate revenues very quickly. I know you said it with business consultancy because you've got great experience in business, and you are brought in. You can market yourself and you go in companies, this is what it's going to cost you. Like for me, you generate and revenue straight away. And I think with a little bit of savings and a clear strategy and an awareness of your market, you can say, right, I'm just going to jump in, give it my all. We know that our business will not be revenue generated because unless you continue to market, there are no revenues. And we knew that would be for a long period of time. So, but if you've got a lot of savings or very few outgoings, you can't make that jump. Yeah. And I've got 3 children from age 5 to age 6. University, there's mortgages, all of that they cover. So it's the rain balance. Yeah. I think these are the challenges most founders have, but it's how much can they give out, when have they got to give, put their all into it, and the risks can be very rewarding, I guess, rather. And you've got to everybody has to make their own decision on that journey.
But it would be good, wouldn't it, if we had some kind of institution, perhaps government-backed in this country, where funding was easier to obtain. Or as you were saying about the length of time it's taken from conversation to delivery. Yeah. I mean, 12 months, the fact you've survived, you could have shut up shop and then that, the IP goes away, doesn't it?
Yeah, and you're really asked by this, you've got your day jobs. Yeah. So you're almost down to carry on with your day jobs till the funding comes in. If you didn't have your day jobs, two A-reads in 12 months in the space of 3 years to get your funding in, it means you've got 1 year of surety over 3-year period. So the risk, anybody looking at that would say that's the risk.
But almost from the British economy perspective, you could lose first mover advantage as well, because you've developed it and maybe there are others doing it, I don't know. But just from every perspective, you would think, well, you need to back these people.
I think for us, we have the interest from these very large companies because they know they've been looking for this and they haven't found it.
Yeah.
And now they're going, whoa, that's very interesting. So, very good conversations being had, contracts being signed to know that a lot. we would have loved to have for this to be a UK thing. We would love to be backed in the UK. You mightn't end up manufacturing in the UK because you can't just manufacture more cost effectively elsewhere. But for the likelihood is that this technology will be lost from the UK. They'll be taken in another company by another more progressive or business or a company will take this. And it fails in the UK, unfortunately, that entrepreneurialism isn't being encouraged.
Yeah.
I would say the attitude of the funders that are there is much less risk based. Yeah, sorry, I guess it's more. It's less entrepreneurial, and they are less willing to take a risk on something that could be, very deep here. That, and it's not just our business. There's a lot of others I've spoken to that they're steering exactly the same. That unless you've got quite significant revenues and they almost deliver this much more money, gives us this much more income, it's just incredibly difficult.
And the technology that you've invented, is that something that somebody else could just invent as well? So somebody else could, is it fairly, I'm going to say straightforward, that's not what I mean, but
it is and it isn't. It's, Alex and Olga, the experts in this field into about the business, they've been working on this for a lot of years.
right.
And it's difficult to do, but once you know how it's done, it could, in theory, with the right skill set, somebody else could say, well, we'll try and do it ourselves.
Right.
And there are a lot of hurdles and there's a lot of things that we haven't set the followers that they would likely face. So it's not straightforward at all. The miniaturization of it is not straightforward, which is where the German partner will help us. But yeah, once you publish papers and once you present it, sort of conferences, it makes people think, let's look at microwaves, let's look at this technology, what are they doing?
Yeah.
So you then are in a race.
Yes.
We've lost 6 months of this year.
Yeah.
Just add to it, still nothing while we're waiting for funding.
Yeah. Gosh, the risks are huge, aren't they? I mean, you put in so much energy into building what it sounds like a brilliant concept, and then you're stymied by, let's call it bureaucracy.
Yeah.
If you like, or obstinacy, whatever you want to call it, a lack of understanding, a lack of desire to create something that could be huge, and it's challenging.
Yes, I think culturally things have changed in the UK. It feels like we're not a leader in terms of backing new startups and new technologies. Much less that take the risk compared to the US and some other territories now, which is quite concerning for the longer term.
Is that something fairly recent, you feel? Is that sort of a post-COVID view of the world, or is it longer term than that?
I think it's the last two years it's become worse.
Right.
I don't, when we started and we were underground funding, it wasn't easy, but it seems to be probably even worse. There's political instability. There's a lack of direction at government level.
Right.
There's a lot of talk at government level. Are we, this country to be created? But there's no follow through.
Yeah.
We've got a budget coming up where we know businesses, investors require surety. They like to know what the plan is.
Yeah.
Less regulation, easy to do business.
Yeah.
And it doesn't feel like that is where we are at the moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
I am surprised to hear this because I think you've currently just this historically the UK has been seen as this hub of innovation. We've had some great businesses and great business people come out of the UK. But your experience obviously doesn't support that
But
at all.
and it is a company that generates huge ideas and new technology. When you can read up and research it, there's a whole lot of it. He's lost a whole lot of it. It's the goal, that Eric trades. You get its support, its funding, and its growth.
Yeah.
You have the hot spots of, Cambridge and other areas in specific sort of sectors of the economy. They do well. But, it's not just within innovation, within the financial sector, you're seeing different companies having moved more listed elsewhere. There's just a lack of confidence that this is the right country to do business in.
Yeah.
And it's a shame.
Yeah. Gosh, that is quite damaging, really. If somebody came to you this afternoon and said, John, I've got this great idea, I've got this invention, would you say, don't bother? Or would you say, or what advice would you give somebody who's got a new business idea?
That's what it was. I think, look, you must believe, to build a business, you must believe in the product or service you have.
Yeah.
And if I didn't believe this technology had a market potential, I wouldn't have remained involved.
Yeah.
And the team, my colleagues, they wouldn't have remained involved.
Yeah.
We had something, and whilst some investors have shown a lack of belief and interest, when you have, the four companies that we are really favourite to, one US, two German, one Chinese, between them, the turnover is, I don't know, $700 billion. They're huge. So if they seek you out and say, we want to understand this more and we're willing to work with you, you have something.
Yeah.
So why would you walk away from it? But to crack that nut and commercialize and get into a partnership with them, this is a long journey. I get that. So you've got to have the passion. You've got to have the belief that you have something. And you've got to be so resilient, because it feels like everything's set up to not make it work.
Yeah.
And you made mistakes. Just learn from them. You've got to go for it, and you've got to believe that in what you have and that you're doing the right things. You've got to get the right support around you to having make the decisions and learn from the mistakes and take it forward. But I wouldn't say don't do it, but I think most people would underestimate how difficult it is.
In terms of building your team, how did you go about that, and what kind of relationships do you need to make this work?
Yeah,
all of that, and it's the stress and
yeah. And the team we have is the team we started with. It's the team of investors out in Norway. It's my business partner who's the CTO. I'm the CEO, and they are the full employees, as it were. And between the four of us, we have the technical skills to do the R&D to a point. So we've been saying that's the point we've got to. We've done the studies. Sensor technology works. There is a device that we could straddle to you, and when you're on a bike, and we could say against the reference devices in the market, this is where we are. We published the papers. We can do all that. What we can't do is on our own is miniaturize it to a watch.
Yeah.
If you're Apple or Samsung or whatever, the amount of money you're spending on making your watches pretty work well, be reliable, it's beyond the start of business. Yeah. So you have to say who we're then going to partner with, who we miniaturize it, and then they take it to market and say anybody who manufactures watches or other devices, there's a sensor that can go into it. So we'll be very clear that we are really an incubator of the knowledge, the technology, the IP, and the data algorithms, and that would better be handed to the partner who would be miniaturize it, constructed into a market-ready chip, and that is linked to a data algorithm, and then they take that forward. We work on the next biomarker. The funding required for us to miniaturize, manufacture, test, distribute, we'd never get there.
No.
So, we did initially, we'll partner with an old company, we'll manufacture it. Very quickly you realise, no, that's not what you should be doing in our instance.
No, you're going to be the innovator, really, aren't you?
Yeah.
In design.
I think you're so smart on, focusing on your strengths that you have within your team, and that's what's sourcing the parts that, someone bigger who does it all the time.
Yeah.
You've got to achieve your competencies, you've got to know what they are and then fit to them and have laser focus on that's what we can do. And then, tech manufacturing, in our case, it's difficult. It's a huge investment in the production line, quality control. And then when you've got something, how do you go out and speak with hundreds of potential clients globally? Or the guys in Germany who work that are doing that with, they've got all of that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think what's exciting about what you've said, despite obviously the challenges around funding, is that the lactate is like the first of a number or many potential opportunities to build new products, but also beneficial to not obviously just to sports people, but as you say, the worried well and eventually health services.
Yeah, I mean, one of the watch manufacturers who we studied to, they're leaders in that field. They're interested in lactate, particularly just at sports watches. And, a lot of people have these watches that's how many miles above around, what's my temperature in my home.
Guilty, yeah.
But actually, from the German perspective, they're going, this is just interesting technology.
Yeah.
So most cars you drive, most mobile phones you pick up, they're silicon chips and all kinds of electronics are in all of those cars, and they're thinking, right, okay, lactate's interesting to us. Alcohol would be.
Right.
Can you slide in cars if the census is,
right, okay, yeah.
really below their drugs? There's obviously they're doing coursework for diabetes. So it's basically, we're not saying we can identify and understand presence and concentration of every biomarker. Some will not be able to, but there are a number we can.
Yeah.
And from a healthcare perspective, it's all about intervening early, avoiding blue light situations. So, in the case of sepsis, a lot of people still die because it's just missed.
Yeah.
Now, if you get into hospital, there's a chance you get a blood test, and that'll be rated a lab and pretty simply from months it looks like could be sepsis. You've got the healthcare professionals have to react within minutes, half hour, an hour at the most. If you're later in 6 hours, if you have got sepsis, you're probably going to die. Or lose limbs and be, serious morbidity. So the ability to be able to test for that in the GP surgery on an ambulance out in the field, it's a game changer.
It's amazing, isn't it, that people can't see that?
Yeah,
It's shocking.
it's incredible the impact that this could have.
It's the late from, okay, you got that, but how do you know the market? And, the school, the healthcare, the regulatory side.
But if it's non-invasive, does it still require the same level of regulatory?
So the NHRA we spoke to, the chief, what's his name? I can't remember his title off his mind, but we presented this to him, and he said, we would approve that you could do an initial study with this because it's non-invasive, which is exactly the kind of technology which you're looking at. We had a hospital in the Northeast, and we want to do it. The surgeons in E&A said this would be amazing. Whatever their ethics for maybe, you can't do that. We need full CE marking, we need full, every bit of regulatory ticked, because that is the health NHS process. That's what NHS is saying is fine. No, I can't do that. So, the Germans will probably do it. For our business, we just want it done. But it's just, you got to be careful in healthcare. You don't want those put into a subject and it would have this side effect. But with our technology, it's it's something I have a 1/400 this trying to keep all my phones in now. And you put that next to your head all day every day. So there's no intervention. For the studies we wanted to do, there's no change in care. It will just be reading and your blood versus from a blood test to correlate.
Well, wearable watches presumably emit, I don't know, as well, similar strength, and people are measuring their heart rate and VO2 rate and all these other rates that I don't understand. But
there's just, for the right reasons in healthcare, there's certainly, there is red tape for a reason, but there is complete inflexibility. But, strategically, we've always said commercial and consumer first. But it's interesting in other parts of Europe, particularly in the Nordics, their healthcare systems are increasingly willing to use consumer devices on patients, whether it's a lifestyle watch or whatever, where not take it home if your readings change when you see the day for you never know, and then you come back in because they know they just can't wait for years and years for you medical devices to come into play when there are things that or at least give an indication that there's a problem. It's still better to have an indication that something has changed, come in and see your doctor, than miss it and it becomes a blowout situation.
Well, Jon, it's been a fascinating discussion on the challenges of fundraising. One of the things we do in each of our podcasts is we ask a guest to put a question to the next guest. So we've got a question from our previous guests, husband and wife couple. And I think, in a way, I already know the answer, but he says, what is the most courageous thing you could do next?
I guess where I am in my life and where my family is, maybe personally the most courageous thing would be, right, it's time to give up the day job and the security of that income and that career development and jump 100% into this business, knowing that we are going to get some support, but probably still not enough. But through that belief in the partners we're speaking to and their response to the technologies is it's now or never. So we've got to do it. And that's what we've already discussed, that everybody interested in a successful business, I guess that had at some point, but that some people do it from the very start, others do it along the journey. So for me, that would be the most courageous thing. But it's off the back of belief. It's a safer, courageous bet. I was encouraged to do this when the first investment came in. Jump away from your day job 100% on this project. Well, if I've done that, we'll be out of the funds, mortgage rate will be paid. And then, are you more likely to walk away from the business you've been working on building if you hit that stage? Because you have to say, well, that's got to be dropped. I've got to go get a job.
That makes perfect sense. So the second part of this is, what would your question be to our next guest?
I guess the first one is, would you do it again?
That's a good one.
Would you do it again? And if you would, what would you do differently, knowing what you know? It's an obvious one in a way, because you learn, who should be involved with you, who shouldn't. You learn from all of those mistakes. What that still doesn't mean
you necessarily do it again.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Jon Dixon of Applied Monitoring, many thanks for being our guest on this, and we look forward to hearing about your success.
Hopefully we'll have another one in the future. See how they did. We did get there, and this is what we had to do together.
Yeah, no, that would be interesting to have that follow up. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.